Hello, this is video lesson 4.2, and today you're going to learn how to multiply a fraction times a whole number. So I'm going to start by showing you example 1, and then we'll do some problems together. So the first thing you want to do when you're multiplying fractions times whole numbers is make the whole number a fraction, and that's very easy to do. You just write it over 1. So I'm going to rewrite this so it's a little easier for me to see. So I have to do 2 over 1 times 2 over 5. Now, since we've had a lot of bow tie reducing on our homework, we'll start looking for that now, even though we'll focus more on that tomorrow. But I look for bow tie reducing. Now, remember, we said anytime there's a 1, that fraction does not reduce. So 2 over 1 isn't going to reduce. 2/5, that doesn't reduce either because 2 does not go into 5. This 2 over 1 won't reduce because there's a 1 involved. And this 2/5 won't reduce. Well, if that 2/5 didn't reduce, this 2/5 won't reduce. So then all I do is I multiply my numerators. So I do 2 times 2, which is 4. Multiply my denominators, 1 times 5, which is 5. It doesn't reduce, and it's not improper, so that is simplest form. All right, let's go down and try one, try one together, then I'll have you try 2. So let's start with problem A. So we have 6 times 2/3. So the first thing, we want to write 6 over 1. Now, some people will do it there, but it gets kind of sloppy, so I like to write it bigger so I can actually see. So we have 6 over 1 times 2/3. Now I'm going to look for some bow tie reducing. So let's start by looking at 6 and 1. Remember, there's a 1, so there's no reducing there. 2/3 does not reduce. 2 does not go into 3. 2 over 1 does not reduce because there's a 1 again, but 6 and 3 do. So I want you to think what number can go into both 6 and 3. And if you thought of it, that number is going to be 3. So 3 goes into itself 1 time, and 3 goes into 6 2 times. Now our problem is going to be much smaller. So I have to do 2 times 2, which is 4. 1 times 1, which is 1. And since 4 over 1 is improper, well, you should kind of know that 4 over 1 is just the same as 4 wholes. What you're really doing is you're dividing the 4 by the 1. 4 divided by 1 is 4. So your answer to A is going to be 4. Now here is your job. Your job is to pause the video and to do B and C. When you're done, I want you to restart it to see if you are correct. Go. All right, let's see how you did. So in B, I'm going to write 9 over 1. But now I write it down here so it's bigger and it's neater for me. So I have 9 over 1 times 1/3. So I'm looking for some bow tie reducing. 9 and 1 don't, 1 and 3 don't, because there's a 1 involved. 9 and 3 does, the 1 and 1 won't. So 9 and 3. Did you think of the biggest number that goes into both 9 and 3? If you said 3 goes into both, then you're correct. So 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 9 3 times. So now I'm going to multiply my numerators. 3 times 1 is 3. And my denominators, 1 times 1 is 1. And 3 over 1 simplifies to 3 wholes. So if you had 3 wholes, give yourself a C. Now on problem C. So I have 4 over 1 times 1/8. So I'm going to write it here. Okay, so looking for bow tie reducing. 4 over 1, no. 1 over 8, no. 1 over 1, no. 4 over 8, yes. The biggest number that goes into both 4 and 8 is 4. So 4 goes into itself 1 time, and 4 goes into 8 2 times. So now when I multiply, I get 1 times 1, which is 1. 1 times 2, which is 2. And 1/2 is not improper, so that is simplest form. You can't reduce that or simplify it any further. All right, so now we're going on to the next page. Now, in this page, the book tries to make it seem like it's a different thing, because if you look up here, it says now we're multiplying a fraction times a whole number. But there really is no difference. So, I mean, who cares if the whole number's on the right or the left? You know, you're going to write it over 1. So there's no difference in these. So I'm not going to go over those examples because we're just going to work on the practice problems here. So here is what I want you to do. Let's just start and have you do problem D. So pause the video and do problem D. When you're done, play the video and see if you were right. Go. All right, let's see how you did. You only did D, right? So I have 3 over 1, and I'm going to write it here. So 1/2 times 3 over 1. And I'm going to look for some bow tie reducing. So 1 and 2, no. 3 and 1, no. 2 and 3, no. 2 doesn't go into 3. And 1 and 1, no. So there's no bow tie reducing. But when I multiply my numerators and denominators, I get 3 over 2, which is improper. So I'm hoping you remember how to simplify this from the homeworks we've been doing. So I'm going to get a little bit of workspace here real quick. Okay, so in case you don't remember, to simplify an improper fraction, 3/2, you have to divide the numerator by the denominator. Notice the number on top, the 3, the numerator, is inside the box. That's important. And when I divide, divide until I get my remainder. 2 goes into 3 one time, which is 2. Subtract 1. And here's how I get my answer. Remember, I'll get the pointer on. It's going to be 1 and 1/2. So I'll write it down here. Remember, this 1 is my whole number. This 1 is my numerator. And this 2 is my denominator. So 3/2 simplifies to 1 and 1/2. All right, so now you are going to do E and F by yourself. Pause the video. When you're done with E and F, restart it, and we'll see if you're right. Okay, let's see how you did. So 2/5 times 4 is going to be 2/5 times 4 over 1. Looking for some bow tie reducing? 2 and 5 don't, because 2 does not go into 5. 4 and 1 don't, because there's a 1 involved. Same thing, 2 and 1. And 4/5 doesn't reduce either. 4 doesn't go into 5. 5 doesn't go into 4. So all you have to do is multiply your numerators. 2 times 4 is 8. My denominators, 5 times 1 is 5. And since the big number's on top, that's an improper fraction. I'm going to do 8 divided by 5, which is 1 and 3/5. 1 and 3/5. Remember how I got those numbers? That's the whole number. 3/5 is my fraction. You kind of go this way in your circle. All right, how did you do on F? So 3/4 times 5 over 1. Let me write it down here. Look for some bow tie reducing. So start with here. 3/4, no. 3 doesn't go into 4. 5 over 1, no. There's a 1. 3 over 1, no. There's a 1. 5 over 4, no. 4 doesn't go into 5. So no bow tie reducing in this one. But when I multiply, I get 15/4. Now that's improper, so I'm going to do my division problem. 15 divided by 4. 4 goes into 15 3 times, which is 12. When I subtract, I get 3. So now here's my answer. Remember, this is my whole number, my 3 and 3/4. So if you had 3 and 3/4, give yourself a C. All right, one more example to go over, and then you're done with me, and we're going to talk about sloths. Now, this is just more of a real-world problem, guys, so let's see how you did. In example 4, it says, a sloth spends 4/8 of its life asleep. If a sloth sleeps to be 28 years old, how many years does it spend asleep? So think of this problem here. It says it spends 4/5 of its life, and it lives to be 28 years old. So that means a sloth spends 4/5 of its 28 years, which is multiplication. So I'm going to write 28 over 1. So like I said, remember that of means to multiply. So 4/5 of 28 is the same as 4/5 times 28 over 1. So now I'm going to look for a little bow tie reducing. Hopefully, because these numbers might be nasty. So 4/5, no. 28 over 1, no. 4 over 1, no. And how about 28/5? No, 5 does not go into 28. So unfortunately, we've got to multiply this one out. And this one could be a little bit of a pain, but it's really not that big of a deal. Watch. So when I do 4 times 28, unless you know your 28 times tables, you might have to do this. 28 times 4, that's 32, carry the 3. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 3 is 11. So that's 112. So 4 times 28 is 112. 5 times 1 is 5. Now that is a very big improper fraction, so now I'm going to divide. 112 divided by 5. Okay, 5 doesn't go into 1, it goes into 11 twice, which is 10. Every time I subtract, I must bring down. 5 goes into 12 twice, which is 10. Now, when I get my remainder, this is when I can set up my mixed numbers. So the 22 is my whole number, and 2/5. So remember the question said, how many years does it spend asleep? So if a sloth spends 4/5 of its life asleep, and it lives to be 28 years old, that means 22 2/5 of its years are spent asleep. I guess that's why they usually use sloth to make fun of someone who's a little lazy, because they sleep all the time. All right, so that's it for the video. If you have any questions, as always, ask me, and thank you for watching. And if you are absent, I'm assuming you have some of these problems down here to be working on, so check your absent sheet. Thanks for watching, guys.